SUVs have been growing in popularity with the extra space, the practicality, the all-wheel driving experience, getting to Johnny to school or heading up to the Alps on the weekend. While some SUVs are built to last forever, others won't even make it 100,000 miles. So if you're out shopping for a new SUV this year, don't be stupid and avoid these SUVs like the plague. Let's get into it now.
Life's too short to drive boring cars.
So the first one, here we have the previous older generation. We have the Jeep Grand Cherokee. This one's a Laredo 4x4, but the specific models are the Grand Cherokee or the Grand Cherokee L, which gives you the 3-row. They have not received a lot of love this year. Consumers Reports says 34 out of 34 in terms of overall reliability out of all car brands and 15 out of 15 of the mainstream brands. I've seen these firsthand. I've had friends that have driven these and have had their share of problems, spending a lot of time in the service shop. There's problems with electrics, safety, transmission. Well, some of these later generations have the ZF 8-speed automatic transmissions. Some of the older generations were suffering some serious reliability issues. Engines have been problematic. Leaks from sunroofs, leaks from the back, body integrity issues with a lot of these vehicles, and some of the parts not holding up all that well. Some issues we can also speak of: transmissions that have been problematic with delayed shifting and rough gear selections, bubbling leather interior on some of these vehicles. I know on the dashboard, and some of the issues with leather just not adhering all that well. Electrical problems, the TIPMs, which are of the older generations, and that's a totally integrated power module, which does leave a lot of the electrics failing, and of course even the gauges, and sometimes it's a no start condition. Model years 2021 had a high level of issues with the high beams and other electrical related issues related to the lights. The ECM has been a problem, particularly when you go back to 2015 model years, and even ergonomically they haven't been great with some of these that had the selector knob where there was actually a celebrity got out, thought they put the vehicle in park, went out, and the vehicle rolled and crushed them. Unfortunately, it's not a great vehicle in any way, shape, or form. It is popular, there are lots of them out there, but Stellantis has lost touch because on top of it, insult to injury, the prices are extremely high on these vehicles. We're talking as well, only 18, 19, 20 miles per gallon, so even the fuel consumption is abysmal on these vehicles. In today's day and age where people are looking for economy and lower costs of service, operating costs, these vehicles don't necessarily fit the bill, and reliability just isn't their forte. The Jeep Grand Cherokee in any format, while it does seem practical and some people love the Jeep name, unfortunately these vehicles lack the reliability, and for 2025 it is certainly one of those SUVs you're going to want to avoid like the plague. So here's the next one on our list that makes the loser list for 2025. You probably want to avoid them, and we're talking about a Land Rover product. This one's the Discovery, as we see right here. Now, I've never really been a lover of the design. It feels like it looks like a big bathtub at the back, but looks aside, I mean, you're worried about more reliability. I mean, sure, you have all the nice technology, these have great interiors, and the ride and the fit and finish in these vehicles is fit for a king and queen. They clearly have all of the technology dialed in to make your ride comfortable. They have great off-roading prowess. As you could see, we've got air ride. This is sitting kind of low. Sadly enough, these vehicles just don't have the reliability needed to keep them on the road for a significant amount of time, at least not without pouring your hard-earned dollars down that proverbial money pit. These vehicles will keep you broke if you plan to keep them up. Now, that's the problem. You need to keep them up because of their high level of complexity and technology and drivetrains, and just the inherent way that these vehicles are manufactured. They need a high level of maintenance, and unfortunately every trip to the shop is going to be one that looks like $2,000, $3,000, $4,000 for maintenance services, small things, not even major repairs, because when they fail huge. And there's a whole plethora of issues, from electronic problems, glitches, and certain features just shutting off and not working at all. There's been conversations about the seat belt retractors activating way too soon. As well, door latches here have been known to be relatively cheap, and they don't necessarily hold up very well, and they don't always lock. There have been problems with that, as well as power steering has been a known issue. Reliability overall hasn't been amazing, and in certain markets the diesel engines have caused caused all kinds of premature excessive fouling and drivability challenges. The biggest problem, because it's a JLR product, the Jaguar Land Rover group, every one of their vehicles is not necessarily targeting the most reliable. They're targeting the comfortable rides. And with that, you're going to pay the price at the repair shop, and the service regimes have to be right on time, and they're going to cost a significant amount of money. On top of that, the overall durability just simply isn't there. While they look wonderful and they're great to ride in, you definitely can't chalk them up as reliable like a Lexus or even an Acura. Unfortunately, these are the vehicles, whether you're talking about Land Rover Discovery, whether you're talking about a Range Rover Sport, or even a full-size Range Rover like these vehicles here, the reliability isn't necessarily their target audience, because they're doing things like door handles that freeze up in the wintertime, air ride suspensions that fail and they're very costly, electronics that are way too complicated for their own good. Means that whatever you buy in the Land Rover JLR group is designed for luxury, and honestly is best suited either for the extremely well-heeled and wealthy people, or those that are looking just to lease, get in, drive it for 2 or 3 years, and then walk away unharmed. Because owning one of these vehicles definitely has to make you question your sanity. Here's another SUV that gets ranked in a very poor way. Well, RepairPal says it's above average predicted reliability, and a lot of people say that if you haven't had an issue, they're quite reliable. Problem is, the percentage and ratio of people having major issues is pretty significant, and Copilot themselves says avoid 2011 to 2017 model years, and 2019 has had significant engine issues as well. And what we're looking at is this little SUV. A lot of people love these. Some swear by them, some not as much. There, of course, you get all-wheel drive. This is a Hyundai product, and we're talking about the Tucson specifically. Now, we know we've heard some of the rod bearing issues and the Theta 2 engines blowing up and all kinds of troubles with shifting and drivability issues. Of course, you do get some alloys and nice handles. They do give you a whole host of technology that actually exceeds some of their competition by the likes of Honda and Toyota. They even have something a little bit more futuristic and more stylish than some of our competition. They're trying to steal market share from those other brands. But unfortunately, even with all of this great technology, fun headlights and open stylish grille and alloy wheels, of course, nice details and fold away with LEDs, all of that greatness just can't overcome the fact that there are significant issues. Transmission issues, shifting, drivability problems, surging. Some of the engines, there's been problems as well with just taking off where the transmission does not respond, or hesitation, bucking, surging. The engines have not been super reliable, and on top of it, 2019 was noted as having significant numbers of engine failures and heavy oil consumption. That's been a real issue. Rod knock for some of the Theta engines, and it's not out of this world to assume that you drive one of these that you may in fact see something more major. Yeah, every vehicle will wear out with time, but you shouldn't have an engine that absolutely catastrophically fails, and the percentage of these are quite significant. So overall, this is one of those models that I would say avoid like the plague. It doesn't have the durability that you would hope. I even personally have a friend that has a Hyundai SUV like this. They traded it in because it developed a rod knock, check engine light started running rough. They took it to the dealer, and it was an estimate to replace the actual engine. So they basically walked away from it, took their couple of bucks and took it to scrap, and essentially went and bought a Nissan product, which I can't say is a whole lot better. So unfortunately, Hyundai Tucson, one of those vehicles, avoid like the plague. And another SUV you're probably going to want to steer away from would be what we're looking at, another Stellantis product. As you can see, we have a Rubicon, which means you have locking differentials front and back. And while they're a very popular vehicle, whether it's this format, whether it's the 4 doors, whether it's the 2 doors, hard top, soft top, there's a lot of different options. And the versatility to go off-road is what brings a lot of people in. The aftermarket is very strong for these brands, and they've been around a long time. It's hard to say how much longer with the pricing the way we're looking right now. It's not uncommon to see a $70,000 or $80,000 Jeep like we're looking at right here, whether it's a Wrangler or whether it's a Gladiator like we're looking here. As you can see, Gladiator, these vehicles here unfortunately are not the epitome of reliability, and Consumers Reports logs them at probably one of the best Jeep products at 45 out of 100, but absolutely abysmal when comparing to the rest of the industry. Now, unfortunately, there's been a plethora of issues. Let's start with the fact that, remember the old TJ with the 4-liter and a manual? Probably the most reliable Jeep you could ever find, and then it just went downhill from there. The 3.8-liter V6 that came after, oil burning, the engines wouldn't last 100,000 miles, and anybody can attest who had a 3.8 knows that they've done major engine work. Unfortunately, later on, they came with the 3.6, and now there's engines. You get the V6, you can get a turbocharged 2-liter, a hybrid, you can get the V8. There's a lot of different generational engines, but the point remains is the quality has never been absolutely exceptional. A lot of issues. Death wobble like that, where the suspension is too loose and wobbly, and it creates a weird wobble and unfortunately very unstable condition, particularly at speeds, and even more exacerbated once you have a lift kit or you start to modify these vehicles. Electrical issues, lights, gauges, power mirrors and windows and locks. All of those features have been known to be problematic because the older TIPM, the totally integrated power module, has been a big problem. That usually leads to thousands of dollars in repairs to replace, because that's the controller for all of your electrical functions. It could also create a no start condition or a stalling situation. Your gauges may act weird, your lights come and go, and electrical problems is not uncommon. These do create a bit of a fishbowl experience sometimes. Leaks through a lot of the seals here, leaks through there, leaks every which way. I mean, at the end of the day, you would think that these vehicles could tolerate getting water inside, but realistically, the older Jeeps could. The newer Jeeps now are so technologically advanced, they're almost like driving a Lexus with a Jeep name. So unfortunately, you don't want water in these vehicles like you once did back in the CJ or YJ days. These vehicles have had a host of issues with that. Body panels not holding up all that well, oil burning technology, and as well transmission issues. I know with some of the manual gearboxes and late models, there is still or was an outstanding recall for a throwout bearing that they didn't seem to be able to fix. And unfortunately, you either have a problem with the manuals, the autos, certain V6s, and certainly the turbocharged 2-liter engine isn't the greatest engine around. The Jeep Wrangler is one of those. It's a love to hate model. Some people love them because of their versatility and the style and the cool factor. But if you're worried at all about your money, durability, or staying out of the service shop, the Jeep Wrangler is definitely one you want to avoid like the plague. Here's the next SUV that I would personally recommend staying away from for 2025. Honestly, most of the older generational units are not that great either. Talking about a Ford Explorer right here, and there has been a pile of issues. Well, let's take this from the top. Transmission issues have been a problem, selecting gears, delayed shifting between gears, engine issues with many of the different drivetrains, the 2023 and engine cooling issues, the 2.3-liter GTDI engines. Of course, it could lead to leaks. There could be the oil feed line to the turbocharger has been known to leak as well, and that could lead to an alleged fire. EcoBoost engines of all sorts have always had their share of challenges. Check engine lights related to faulty head gaskets, oxygen sensor issues, dirty mass airflow sensors, and of course misfires due to bad spark plugs, which is just a maintenance item. But they also suffer from some of the biggest list of recalls with Ford Explorers known to the entire industry. A lot of police forces use these vehicles throughout their fleets, and sadly, you probably heard about the story being gassed out inside the vehicle where they were often getting carbon monoxide inside the cabin. Quite a terrifying situation, to be honest with you. And of course, as you see, the classic Ford symptom with bad paint has been a problem. This one's a limited, so it is fully spec'd, and it's a Ford Explorer. But as I mentioned already, the EcoBoost has had its share of issues. Now, it's a very popular vehicle, and there's a lot of them out on the road, so the chances of seeing more issues is quite prominent. And even according to RepairPal, there's not any major issues of massive severity. It's just a whole pile of nickel and dime issues, and these are rated actually at 19th out of 26 mid-size SUVs, putting them clearly further down the list in terms of overall reliability, and certainly not one that I would recommend to anybody I know or care about. While they do give you the room, the space, the capacity, and the practicality, unfortunately it suffers from a lot of the Ford quality issues. Right here's the next SUV that makes a list of one of the least reliable SUVs, and certainly one, if you don't like adventures and you don't want to spend a lot of time in the service shop, this might be one of those vehicles you may want to steer away from. And there's a recall back in 2022 for some suspension parts that were potentially corroding at the back. Of course, you get surging and hunting. That transmission's been a little aggressive. More importantly, even the engine has a bit of a surginess to it as well. This year they have upped the performance, 174 horsepower, and you do happen to get yourself an 8-inch screen at the front. Unfortunately, most people who experience these vehicles find that the drivability, the quality, the overall feel is quite cheap, and and it's not something that inspires, especially something that you would expect from the German manufacturer. Of course, you do get some great wheels, color keyed handles on there. Of course, we're talking about the Taos here by Volkswagen. Naturally, it's their smallest SUV, and while a lot of people want something small and economical, even the Tiguan provides slightly more value and an optional third row. These vehicles here do lack the polish, do lack the quality, and do lack the overall reliability that a lot of people are expecting. The reliability, sadly, Consumers Reports ranked the Volkswagen Taos in 2024 as the least reliable vehicle on the market. Next to only the Chrysler Pacifica Hybrid was the only one that did worse, and everybody knows Stellantis has always struggled with reliability. Sure, you get some beautiful LEDs, all kinds of nice chrome detail. 4Motion means you get all-wheel drive on this vehicle, and it's definitely a nice looking color combination on these vehicles, and the interior is a little cramped and doesn't feel to be built as nicely as some of its competition. So if you're looking for a small SUV and you want reliability, this one's probably not going to get you covered unless you really need to have the Volkswagen brand. This one here definitely does lack a little of that polish. Maybe a Mazda CX-30 or something along those lines. The Mazdas are also great competition from the affordability and reliability perspective, as they're some of the best, most reliable small subcompact and compact SUVs on the market. Unfortunately, the Volkswagen Taos is not one of those vehicles, and you're taking your chance on reliability and quality with this vehicle. So with all of that said, if you want something reliable, check out that list. 2025's most reliable vehicles you could possibly find. And if you're looking for reliable SUVs or luxury vehicles, right there, that's your list. Hope to see each and every one of you on the next one. See you real soon. Bye-bye.